Hey everyone, Glyn here. Before we get started, I want to share a brief content note. Today's conversation dives into men's mental health and covers some very heavy topics, things like depression, anxiety, and dealing with death. And while these conversations are crucial, they can be challenging to hear. So please, listen with care, step away if you need to, and know there is help available. We will place links for local support in the description and on our social post. Thank you.
Welcome back to the ASN Dad Chat. We're a podcast and community dedicated to making sure no ASN dad in Scotland has to walk this path alone.
Our goal is simple: real talk, real honesty, and sharing our own experiences to help you navigate the system. Whether you're in our meetup group already or just finding us now, you've got a seat at the table.
And just a reminder, we aren't experts, we're just dads, and this is just experiences and opinions, not medical advice, not legal advice. Now let's go on with the chat today.
Hello and welcome to ASN Dad Chat. I'm Andy and I'm joined by Sam.
Hello.
And Glyn.
Hey.
And based off some of the questions we got on the previous episode that we couldn't quite get finished, we're looking to dedicate a full episode on mental health, as those were the kind of main themes around the questions that we didn't manage to get through last week. I think we can all agree it's a massive topic.
Absolutely.
Strap in.
Yeah, it's going to be a good episode today. It's such a massive, it's a massive topic everywhere. Men's mental health, mental health in general. It's huge at the moment, and I think a lot of the time when it comes to men, especially, we bottle things up, or we kind of hold on to things more than we should. So I think it's definitely moving in the right direction, but it's important to talk about.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, not to kind of jump into things very quickly, but I would probably say that having a kid with additional needs has made me more aware of the kind of mental health side of things. Obviously, it is much more stressful, I would say, or I would assume, than a neurotypical kid, but I think it's kind of made me more in touch with kind of how I feel on a day-to-day basis and kind of how important it is to have that open dialogue. What about you guys? I don't know if that kind of relates to you guys as well. You're kind of more aware.
I'm an absolute shit and I don't talk about my feelings. No.
And Glenn the brute, right?
I'm stoic to a T. Yeah, I mean, I've understood mental health to an extent throughout my life. Obviously, there's definitely things I've had to try and work on through time to time. Things that I've not fully acknowledged with myself, and obviously I've sinned with other people. But like you say, Andy, obviously having to kind of be in touch with that a bit more, since having kids as a whole, is definitely something that's it's a work in progress, an ongoing struggle, as it were. But having people to be able to talk to about it on a daily does help.
Absolutely. I think it's a battle you'll be fighting for the rest of your life. I can think from a young age, like even the smallest things that I used to kind of palm off, about being nervous or about being very self-conscious, all of these types of things, and it's taken me a long time to kind of come to terms with a lot of it. I think I struggled a lot from a young age. I was an only child. I didn't really have that kind of, I'll be honest, I don't think I really had like a realistic view of the world, so to speak. I was very sheltered, which my parents, obviously, they done, you do what you can, but I think I had a very kind of, I cared deeply about, how people felt about me and stuff like that, and it really did impact my mental health going through, primary school, high school, etc. And, I think at the time it wasn't really focused on, and it's taken me a long time now, with help as well, with counselling, lots of different services and medication as well that helped me get through kind of the day by day. So it's incredibly important.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's important to be honest with yourself. I know personally I've had some difficult times, even just looking back last year. I had to take some time off work to kind of focus on myself, and just really, I think it's one of these things where there was questions that we didn't actually manage to get through last week in terms of how long did it take for you to accept your child's diagnosis or that sort of thing. And I think it's quite interesting because I think you do accept the diagnosis, but then there's going to be certain times where it almost just kind of gives you a punch in the gut out of nowhere that just really kind of hits home of how difficult the situation is that you're in, and it can just kind of get you really down. It can get you to the point where you do feel kind of quite helpless in the situation, that you have a child with additional needs that's struggling and you can't be the dad that just fixes everything. It's something that I struggled with. Just again, there'd be times where over the years I'd be taking Ashton up to bed and you'd just be lying next to him in bed, and again your kind of life, or his life, would just be kind of flashing through your head, and the moments that you wouldn't get with them, and I would have kind of tears streaming down my face. I don't mind saying it.
Real men cry.
Oh, that's it. I mean, it'd be different if I was in front of a big crowd. I would not be speaking at all. But yeah, I think it's just something that I'm a lot more aware of now when it does come to things like anxiety and how to trying to deal with it. It's not always easy, and as Sam touched on, there is sometimes a need for different help, whether that is therapy, medication, different things we can touch on throughout the episode.
Absolutely. I think being an ASN parent, I think there are so many challenging moments, there are so many rewarding moments too, and we will never not talk about that. But like you said, I think your child's lives, you envision what you want to say like it could have been, but I think you have to sometimes, you look at it and you face the reality that you have a child that, number one, isn't prepared for the outside world, isn't prepared for, the world as it is at the moment. And you also look at it and go, at the moment, the world isn't prepared for our children. It's vice versa. And there are so many things that, we can do, and we can improve our children to no end. And, but it's obviously going to be, you need to be realistic about your expectations, and that can be really difficult. And there's been many a night that I've sat there and I've been like, this was one day, this was just a day, or this was a week or a month, and it's just been, I've not achieved anything that I've wanted to achieve. Recently, like when I turned 30, and I had a really kind of big review of my life, and I remember I spoke to my partner about it, and I was like, I'm 30 years old, I'm not working, I'm a dad of 3, I'm happy to be the dad, and I always wanted to be a dad. But I think I had it in my head of, if I was going to be a dad, I wanted to be in a job, I wanted to be providing, I wanted to be, I wanted to have a life outside of my kids, and right now I don't have that. And I'm not the person I want to be, and I don't look the way I want to, and etc. And it can build up on you, and it can really get to you. And my partner, she was brilliant with it, to be fair. She kind of turned around and went, listen, I think you have to, like, these are valid things that you're talking about, but there's only so much of that you can control. There are things within your control that you can get assistance with, or that if you have an idea in your head of what you want to achieve, then writing it down, etc. But there's also so much of that you can't control, and it's very situational, and you're always going to have regrets over what you do and you don't. So yeah, there's a lot to it, and mental health I don't think people take it for granted at how important it actually is until you have these moments of adversity,
Yeah, definitely. I spoke on the last episode about the fact, obviously, that before moving to Glasgow, I was very extroverted and sociable with my lifestyle. Moving to Glasgow was definitely one of the best decisions I've made. Got to be with my wife, made a family, pushed myself to a career. I made the podcast. Pushed myself to make a career for myself. Like, realistically, before I came to Glasgow, I was working in a dead end job, and I didn't really have any prospects for myself, obviously. But then I pushed myself to give myself a career. I'm now a store manager. I'm working for a business that I love, but I've definitely had jobs that I absolutely hated because on the road to that. And mental health is obviously definitely something that I've struggled with for many years and never understood it in one way or another. For myself, I saw it in other people, and I always wanted to help other people. I think I've definitely had like a bit of a hero complex at times where I've wanted to help others and not to really look after myself, because caring for other people and looking after them was more important to me, and I think that's pushed me into how I perceive myself to be as a dad as well. So looking at things that I can definitely say that I've not looked after myself as best I can through a lot of things. Weight, self-care. There's definitely been times where Jade's had a conversation with me when it's been like, you're not looking after yourself. I think you're not doing this anymore. Like you're not caring for your appearance. Like, I think that definitely helped get me back into the retail that I'm in just now, because I'm customer facing. Like, I need to look after myself, and that's that helps my social facade, as it were, masking in my own way. And I think there's a social aspect from my retail as well. Obviously, I need to have that conversation with people. Obviously, and there's many things for it. Obviously, I have a lot of a journey still to go through. I want to seek counselling, to be able to talk about things in my past, like my life as a whole. One of the things recently that I've struggled with, a friend of mine took his own life last year, and he was a dad of two, and he was somebody I used to live with. Obviously, we had an amazing relationship, but we drifted away after I'd left Birmingham. Obviously, I think the last time I'd seen him before his funeral was my wedding, and that was 9 years in passing. Obviously, we talked on the phone. Obviously, we had things, and we were always like, "Yeah, we'll meet up. We'll do this. We'll do that." And we just never, because we're both too busy.
I was going to say, life gets in the
way.
Life
100% gets in the way. I struggled with it a lot last year. The fact of that, what could have been done to have helped him, and I was fairly angry with him because of what he did. But I come to learn that it was a mental health thing. He couldn't bear what he was doing anymore. And it's hard to think about. Obviously, that it was the only out he could give himself.
Yeah.
But I have to go forward with that, obviously, and hope that he is now, for whatever, at peace. Obviously, I don't know what that was like for everybody. Has different aspects of what they think about things. Once you die, I don't have any thoughts on it either way as it stands for me for now. But you get to a point where you're like, okay, if something like this happens to me, or if it's, God forbid, anything was to happen to me, who's going to look after my kids? Who's going to look after my family?
Yeah.
What does that life look like for Elijah and Noah and Jade? Obviously, if God forbid I was to just get knocked down walking across the road tomorrow. So these are constant thoughts that we all go through, especially as parents. Obviously, especially as parents with the kids that can't look after themselves. Who is going to look after them? Who is going to advocate for them? If anything was, God forbid, to happen to us.
Yeah. Yeah, 100% agree with kind of everything you said there. There is always a thing in the back of your mind of, I think every parent we've spoke to always has that thought in the back of their head, kind of what's going to happen once we're gone, who's going to look after our children, because a lot of them aren't going to be able to look after themselves. And I think it ties into, I don't know if you guys have this, but especially recently I have this huge kind of guilt and self-imposed pressure on myself, and I just feel just now that it's almost as if I should be doing more. It's almost in my head of like, Ashton isn't going to just develop himself, like you need to be working with him constantly, doing everything you can. You should be looking into the latest help that you can get. You should be sitting, going through any sort of educational pieces with him every day. You should be doing this, you should be doing that. And it's almost as if there's this huge, again, self-imposed pressure that I should be doing more any time where, like, I know that I've spoken to Cheryl and she'll say the same, like, you almost feel guilty if he's just playing himself, and if we're watching TV, even though if Ash was neurotypical, that's what he would be doing. Whereas there's almost that pressure that you put on yourself that no, we should be sitting with him, we should be making him, kind of help him to be doing everything he can. I mean, even things where if Ashton has a messy room, I'll feel terrible because I'll think, well, that's on us. Ashton can't look after himself in these ways, or any of these ones. So I feel like there is this constant guilt, as if he does have one of these kind of regressions that I've spoke about before, where he does have difficult patches, it's almost as if, well, that's on me, I've caused that.
I think for every parent out there that is the case. I certainly experience it. I think I have got better at turning around and saying, no, well, I'm not perfect. I'm a human being. I need my own time. I can't, get everything done that I need to do. And that was one of the things I reflected on was, I'm 30 years old and I'm not in a job, and, there's people in my family that are very old school and like, you've been out of work for 2 years, you're probably not going to get another job again. And that does get to me sometimes because I'm like, they might be right. Somebody could take a look at my CV and go, geez, that's the last time he worked, and you have these kind of thoughts, and I don't think that'll ever change, is saying, I should be doing more, or I could be doing more. But I think at the same time, you could be on the other end where, you could be doing so much like less than what you are doing. You're working, obviously you guys, you're working jobs, you're coming home, you're being supportive partners, you're also being dads, that's a lot on your plate, and I think I sit there and I go, I feel sometimes like I'm a complete cop-out because I'm at home, and I'm not working, so if I not, realistically I should get way more done.
But I think at the same time, and you, I don't know if you'll agree or not, Glyn, but sometimes it can feel like going to work is your break. Yeah. Because, I mean, obviously work is stressful in its own way and is very difficult, but I feel that it can be more life at home, where obviously I'm not saying everything's very bad or anything, but it's obviously you're always switched on. As stressful you are, as I say, between yourself and your partner, you're the one that has to be responsible for everything. So I know that for me, while work is stressful, it can be seen as more of a break.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a guilt to that as well sometimes. The work is a social aspect for me as much as it is for getting out of the house and getting away. It's that time where I can speak to other adults. It's that time where I can focus on a task or like a target and not have to think about the 100 things that needs to be done in my house, like the things that need to be done for the boys. And there is a guilt to that, obviously, that I can go to work and I can feel this way, but I get what you mean. Obviously, like I'm similar. Obviously, I actually work. I'm paid fine, but obviously Jade is pretty much the breadwinner for us because of what she does and how much she earns. So whilst my money brings in and helps towards bills, I'm not the breadwinner, as it were. Obviously, that plays on my mind as well. But I actually took a step down money wise, mentally to help me. Obviously, I was in it. So you're saying obviously working is something that you want to aim towards, but you also don't just want to work for the sake of working.
No.
Because sometimes a job can make it worse. There's you have the stresses of the environment at home, and then you have the stress of the environment at work, and it can all boil over. So it does definitely come down to just working for the sake of working, or working because you need that time. I know I spoke before about the fact of that there could be a chance of a time where I have to stop working. And me and Jade have had this conversation that realistically, if it came down to it, it would be me that would stop working, not her. And not as a selfish act or anything like that, obviously, like, on her part. It's just she earns better money than me. I had, before having Elijah and like leading up to the career that I knew I wanted for myself afterwards, once I'd moved to Glasgow, I had a progression plan that I wanted to do, and I've been open and honest about my plan, that the fact that realistically there could be a time that I have to stop, and I'm not going to hit the goals that I wanted to hit anymore, and I have to make peace with it.
Yeah, I think I kind of look at a lot of the things that I wanted to achieve in my life, and from a young age, it's certainly something that I've kind of walked through like therapy, and I know we'll come on to talk about that, and it's kind of evaluating, you know, your entire life, and something that you know, the assessments that they done, that you kind of, it's like a questionnaire basically, and it's like most likely to least likely, it's like a point scoring system, and I think the first time I done one of them, it scored quite high. It wasn't quite up to the kind of suicidal aspect. I've never ever been there myself. One thing I'll certainly give credit to my dad. My dad died when I was about 15, and that really messed me up for a long time. But I remember he turned around to me and he said that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and that always stuck with me. You know, no problem is permanent. You know, everything can be fixed in time, or, you know, with support, and, you know, I think that gave me a bit of solace. So I can only imagine what you're currently going through, especially if it was somebody close to you. You know, I can only sympathise, and I know there's been people in my life and in my family that have also, you know, felt the need, and it's awful to think about, you know, that things seem so unbearable that you don't see a way out, and I can only imagine how awful that is. So it's making sure you have that support network, and you know, I think, like kind of what you were talking about as well there, Glyn, about, you know, things not going to plan. You know, I think I looked at the way I had it in my head was I was going to go to high school, I was going to get, you know, good grades, I was going to go to university, I was going to get a degree, and then I would just walk it right into a job, and I'd be in that job until I was old and retired with a nice fat bank account. But you know, I went to university, I done okay. I very much kind of underestimated how difficult it was, and I didn't put the hard graft in, really. Came out with a degree, went into jobs, kind of bounced around. I didn't really enjoy what I was doing. I'd got a kind of degree in finance. I went off and I worked in the kind of finance sector for a while, and I think I really struggled because it was like, I felt like I was just a spoke on a wheel. I didn't feel important in what I was doing. I just felt like a statistic, and it really kind of got to me. And I went away and kind of worked with children. I worked in like soft plays, I worked in kind of the social work aspect, and then I went and done kind of my teaching degree. And then again, my plan was to, you know, graduate, be a teacher, do my probation year, and work as a teacher until I was old and had a fat bank account. And then I went into my probation year, and I was in it for 8 weeks, and I wasn't in a great place. I had my youngest on the way, with 2 autistic children at home at that time. I started having panic attacks. I was doing 16-hour days trying to get better at teaching, and it got to the stage, probably the first time in my life, where I had to turn around and go, I can't do this anymore, you know. And I would break down crying, you know, just because I'd built all these expectations up for myself that, you know, I owed it to my parents, I owed it to, all the people that had, mentored me and looked after me to do what I wanted to do, and I just couldn't. So I think it's taken me many, many years to get to the stage where I'm now at, and I can be like, listen, yeah, on one aspect, I am nowhere near what I want to achieve and who I am as a person, but I'm on the right path, and that you almost have to kind of start and really analyse who you are, and understand that whether you find that perfect calling, at 18, at 21, at 30, at 40, it doesn't really matter what age you are, so long as you eventually find what your calling is.
Yeah, I think it's that way where obviously you can have all the best plans in the world, but there's always things that can happen that just kind of changes that, and it could be that you weren't meant to do the path that you wanted, and this is the path that's going to lead to your overall happiness when it comes to it. But I think with everything that we've spoke about, it just highlights that the biggest thing, and it's always something that we champion, is obviously community. That don't just keep any of these things to yourself, as it's not a healthy thing to do a lot of the time, especially when it comes to our community of dads, that you'll be feeling feelings that a lot of the other dads are feeling as well. So there'll be a lot of people that you can relate to. And the good thing as well, and it's something that I'll also find with my wife Cheryl, that it's usually that another person that can pick you up, or know when to just kind of let you just be yourself, essentially. Because I think we've touched on before about how sometimes you do just need someone to say, agree with you, to be like, no, you're right, that is crap, as opposed to someone that's just kind of being massively positive. Sometimes you just need someone to agree with you, to be like, yeah, that is a really bad situation, you just need to take some time to yourself, and do what you need to do to get better, whether that is speaking to your doctor, no shame in doing that to get some medication to help, whether it's looking at different types of therapy to try and understand why you feel the way that you do, because you are in an incredibly stressful situation, and it is best just to make sure that you don't just keep it to yourself, because you're not going to be the best person you can be, especially for your child. You do need to be kind of 110% almost to kind of be able to survive the days half the time.
I think your mental health, especially as a parent, no matter what, your mental health plays a part in how you are as a parent. If your mental health, like you said, Andy, if your mental health isn't at its peak, then it's going to affect how you are, and it's going to have an impact on your children. So I think that's certainly something that I've been looking at, is being more social, doing things that improve my mental health. Certainly something I know you'd mentioned before is weight. I really struggled with my appearance, and it very much affected my self-esteem, all of these types of things. So eating healthier, like I've lost weight, which has been really good. It's made me feel slightly better. I still have like that kind of thing where I look in the mirror and I don't like what I see, but it's not going to go away easily, but I think getting into healthier routines, going out and doing exercise, that's been really big for me. Even spending an hour walking the dog, something like that, just getting out of the house, putting your headphones in and kind of going off and doing something positive, and it can be really good. So I think that's obviously something.
Yeah, I think it's so hard as well though, because I know personally you can have all these plans, just right, we're going to start, whether it's healthy eating or we're going against this routine, and all it takes is one bad difficult day, and then it can just be the end of the night and everything's just out the window. You're kind of back to square one again. I think that we're all very guilty of not prioritising ourselves as much as we should do either. And obviously, Glyn, you touched on it, but I think it is just that way, that I think it's natural that we're always putting our children first, to be like, okay, what works out best for them, at most of the time your own detriment. Whereas I think it is important to get that balance, to know that you need to look after yourself in order to look after them.
100%.
It's like you wake up in the morning, you hold your breath, and then you don't actually let go of that breath until they're asleep.
Yeah.
And that's obviously you're just constantly on edge. You talk about obviously that the kids, they can be going wild all day, and you could get to a point where you yourself feel touched out, and they could be like grabbing at you, and they could be pulling at you, they could be like asking you things, and it gets to a point where you get physically overwhelmed as well. But as I say, it's just trying to find that thing. I have a thing where I'll put a headphone in sometimes, where I'll have like a podcast going or like music going, just so I can kind of center myself while we're doing things. I definitely find music helps me as a therapy, so I can just kind of like lose myself in like music as a whole. Obviously, it's definitely something that's helped me throughout my life. Like, just sit in a room listening to music, or go for a walk, as you said. Just listen to music. Like a song can change a mood in an instant.
I was going to say, I've got a playlist of like different songs that are like focused on certain emotions. So I have like there'd be days where I want to listen to like I really like upbeat, type songs or whatever. My daughter, she's been like obsessed with the K-pop Demon Hunters. She's been right into that, and by nature I now am obsessed with the song track from that, so I've been listening to that. On other days though, I'll be listening to, like, I love wrestling, so I'll listen to wrestling theme songs, like kind of, especially at the gym. I feel like the very odd occasion that I've been going, like wrestling music seems to be like blood pumping, really gets you like in the mood, and like music has such a good impact on how you're feeling, so I think music is definitely something that helps me too. I don't know about you, Andy.
Yeah, I think it is trying to have that time to yourself, and it is just things like, for me, if I've got any time to myself, I have the time, it is just going to a coffee shop or something and listening to a podcast. I think I said recently that it's trying to find different things to fill space if you are on your own. Obviously, I flagged recently about trying to get back into gaming so I can join in with all you guys, because it is sometimes that I'll find personally that me and Cheryl will struggle with that way, where if we have spare time, it's almost like, okay, now we need to use this spare time to catch up on admin, we need to catch up on all the emails or the appointments, or we need to think about how we're going to help Ashton with his next kind of progression, how are we going to catch up on this, and you're almost using your break from Ashton with things that are just as stressful, and it's easier said than done to be like, okay, we need to spend this time with nothing related to the kind of stressful situations we're in, and just trying to switch off, whether it is just going to the cinema or anything, because there has been so many points that I touched on it before, where I'll be in a place where everything else just feels insignificant, whether it's a case of I could be out with friends and they'll be talking about different stories and things, and in my head I'll be thinking, this is just not a patch on the issues that I have in my life. I can't even think about smaller, funnier stories. In my head the full time is just thinking, why are you not looking up the next thing about Ashton, why are you not helping with this? And I just feel like I'm just kind of drifting through certain days, but I think that I'm a lot better at noticing when I'm down, and definitely it's something that Cheryl can highlight as well, and me to her, I think we're very good at kind of recognising when one of them is kind of up and one of them is down, so I think it is, she's probably the most important thing, who kind of keeps me afloat most of the time.
I think there's going to be obviously people in our community that don't have partners, and it can be, I can only imagine it being really difficult, not having that support. And I think that's where we've talked about before is, communicating in this community is so important. Talking through your thought process, if you're having a bad day, by all means rant in the chat. Like I've done it many a time. At the moment, with our oldest, we're trying to obviously move and get a safer place for him, and the council are making that incredibly difficult. And you know, you have to respond professionally over emails or when you're doing your admin. But in the chat, I'm like, oh, this guy who works for the council, I just want to, you know, knock him out near enough. You know, so it is good to kind of get your feelings out. And you know, I think when it comes to mental health, like we were talking about, there's multiple types of therapies. You know, I done, was it cognitive behavioural therapy, so that's been really good. I recently finished that. Just kind of retraining your brain of how to like process certain things, which was really, really good. You know, I think so we focused on like breathing exercises, talking about how to, like, you know, when certain events are happening, you know, what's your kind of go-to emotion, how we can then channel that into something more positive, and using these kind of techniques to, you know, get through day-to-day life is so important. And you know, being a parent, and I can imagine for you guys, like, going to work as much as it's a social aspect, and like you said, it can be really stressful, so trying to balance that, your house, your kids, your partner, it's insane, you know.
Work-life balance is a big one. Glyn touched on it before about obviously dropping down to kind of get that balance and things, and I think when you get a job, you're usually thinking, okay, how can I work my way up and how can I be the best I can be, but it kind of got to a point for me, I think, kind of after being off for a while last year to kind of work on my mental health. It's that way of, okay, like, am I looking to work up? Am I looking to make extra money? But it's that way of balance in the terms of, okay, some extra money, but how is that going to work in terms of sacrificing kind of more on mental health? Is this going to be a lot more stress? And it's balancing how you're going to be as a person, as opposed to just trying to be completely driven and kind of work. It's not as much of a consideration now as opposed to how I'm going to be feeling in myself.
Yeah, I definitely chase jobs for the salary instead of what they could do for me, up until like the last place I'm working at now. When I took this job on, obviously me and Jade had a conversation about it and said, look, I'm going to be making less money, and it was going to be a change to our situation. Obviously, like, I'm not going to be as free, like, during the days to do certain things. But that could all change. Obviously, I can try and, once I'm secure in the position, obviously I can try and ask for differences, and I did. And because of the relationship that I've created with the people I work with, I've managed to do that. Like, so I work 6 days a week, but I do 3 shorter shifts throughout the week. So my only day off is a Sunday, which is good. But I've managed to create it so that I am finishing at like 3:00 in the afternoon, 3 days out of the week, so that I can be there to get a loader off the bus, and still get time with him, still get time with Noah. And I'm not just working from 9 a.m. until 6:00 at night, or doing like a back shift where I don't get home until after 9:00. And I took steps to find a job that was close to home as well. Like, I'm not commuting as much now. I live 5 minutes away from where I work. That's good. So I can I can walk to and from home easily. So yeah, taking the steps to kind of not chase the money but chase the benefits is definitely something that is worth looking into as well when you're looking at the great career path.
I think the job has to fit your life. Your life doesn't fit the job is the key. I think, like, I've certainly had jobs in the past that were, like, financially they were really nice, but at the time it wasn't, susceptible. It wasn't ideal. And now that I certainly have children, I think, if I am looking for a job, it would need to be, I would need to look at something flexible. I would need to look, I think me and my partner, I've talked about it with my partner before, something that, think about for a while was maybe taxi driving, because it's very flexible.
Yeah.
But I haven't decided at all on what I'm indecisive about what I'm having for dinner tonight, never mind my job aspects. So yeah, I think when we look at mental health, though, I know there's a lot of people out there who are going through a lot of things and it's not apparent, and that's one thing I will say is, anybody that you see, and they could be the most bubbliest person ever, they might be fighting a lot of demons that you just don't know. So I think always checking in on people is paramount. There's a guy I watch on YouTube, and he always says, check in with your loved ones and tell someone you love them. And I used to be like, oh, that's a nice wee kind of catchphrase, but I think the more I think about it, I'm like, it's actually really important, because you messaging someone and checking in on them, it could save them from doing something drastic or something like that. So yeah,
I had a ritual a year or so ago. So we've got like a Ring doorbell, and anytime I left for work in the morning, I'd say into the doorbell, like, see you later guys, love you. Obviously I did that every day, obviously just because that could be the last thing that could be said to my family see. So yeah, absolutely checking in on people, because you don't know what people are going through. Like, I think as guys, we're told to not show emotions, not show feelings, obviously, because it's weak. Like you said earlier, like, strong men cry. Obviously, like, and it's fine for us to do. Obviously, like, you don't have to be embarrassed about doing that. But we're all brought up to be strong hunter-gatherers. Like, this is what you should be doing. Like, make sure this is the life that you make yourself. But that's not the day and age that we live in anymore.
No. I think it's recognising that we've all got strengths, we've all got weaknesses. I know that in my relationship with Cheryl, there's a lot of things that she will kind of do a lot more of for me in terms of covering my weaknesses, and I'll do the same for her, because we'll both admit that there's certain things that we just can't cope with. And since we've had that sort of conversation a few years back, it's been massively beneficial to know that we can help each other. I think it's kind of clear that I suffer from a lot of anxiety when I'm out with Ashton, and it's difficult if he is doing kind of certain behaviours, or if he is being kind of difficult. I struggle to deal with it, so there'll be a lot of times where I'll have to say to Cheryl, like, I need to just kind of walk away just now because it's getting too much for me, can you take over? And it's never any sort of issue, because she recognises that it's obviously beneficial that I'm able to kind of recognise in myself that I do need to kind of step back and calm down, because I'm just getting far too anxious and getting worked up about things, and that's the sort of times where if I'm on my own, it's that fight or flight. I'd be like, right, actually we need to go home, like, it's just too much.
Yeah, I mean, anxiety itself it can be so debilitating. It can be the difference between you doing something that you love, or deciding, no, I'm good. And I've been guilty of it in the past. Even before I had kids, I was a part of a friends group, and with all of the guys that were in it were like, they were really looking after themselves. They were in good physical condition. So anytime, like, we would go on nights out or anything like that, I was always incredibly self-conscious, because I was like, oh well, I'm the fat one, I tag along, and I really used to like diminish my like self-esteem, and it's taken a long time for me to work on that. Like, my partner, she's been incredible. She certainly has built me up, and she very much is like, listen, when I am having these moments, and I have had many panic attacks before, and she can she's very good at noticing when I'm certainly displaying early symptoms. So there's been many a time where, there was one time at home actually, I was really struggling, and she kind of pulled me aside. She was like, listen, come with me. And she took me to she like took me down the hall, and she gave me like one of those eye masks that you put over, and she put on a sound what's it called, a sound bath. Yeah, she put on a sound bath, and she was like, listen, go do a sound bath and then come back out. And you know, in that moment I was like, no, I don't want to do a sound bath, I just want to, you know, I want to do this, I want to do that. And she's like, listen, just trust me, on you go. And I was like, fine. And honestly, I came out like an hour later and I was like, oh, I feel a lot better, do you know? So sometimes it's, you know, it's like working with your partner and establishing that. You know, something that I am incredibly anxious about all the time is money. You know, money is a massive thing in my life that I am incredibly anxious about. Like my partner, she's the breadwinner, very similar to what you were saying, Glyn. You know, she gets kind of all of the children's benefits side, and she gets her own kind of disability benefits as well. She has numerous she's got autoimmune conditions, etc. So, but like financially, she's like way ahead of where I am, and you know, for a long time I used to really struggle with that because, you know, I would earn a fraction of what she earns, and it very much got to, like, it was certainly something we discussed, and it was about contributing, you know, the equal percentage of, you know, each other's income. So we have like a kind of system, and it works, and both of us are happy for that. But even then, like, there'll be days where, you know, I've had to make a big purchase, or you know, an unexpected purchase, and it's left me with very little money, and you know, I'll be sitting there and I'll be kind of retreating in on myself, and she'll turn around and she'll go, you good? And I'm like, yeah, just this and this came out, so I'm a little bit shy this month. And she'll be like, that's fine, don't worry, we've got it. And just that alone kind of gives you a perk up. But there's going to be things in life that certainly trigger our anxiety, or, you know, can make you depressed, and it's about reaching out to people in your community, reaching out to doctors and health professionals, and reaching out for the services that are out there, you know.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that came in from the questions that we'd requested last week was around how having children with additional needs can affect your relationships themselves that you have with your partner, and because obviously there is a lot of stress, as we've touched on. There's a lot of kind of stresses on your mental health. How do you guys find that it's affected things, whether it's positively, negatively, or just made things tougher?
I think intimacy can go out the window sometimes, and not just like as a physical touch thing or anything like that. It can just be a case of just talking to each other, and just making that time for each other. Like, you become essentially two people just trying to survive the day.
Roommates.
And sometimes, yeah, it can just be a case, it can just be feeling like that, obviously, just that as roommates and not as husband and wife or partners. And like, you're just trying to do everything you can for each other to try and get through the day, but you then don't think about the fact of like having some time together. Like, me and Jade struggle with like trying to make time for ourselves, like having a date night or something like that. Other than ourselves, our only real childcare is my mother-in-law, and she already helps out during the week for like watching Noah, like on the Friday when he's not in nursery, when we're at work, or she comes down to get Elijah off the bus if one of us can't make it there in time. So we don't like the idea of asking her to potentially come down on an evening, so that we can go to an event, or we can go to something. Obviously, we all went to an event a couple of weeks back, and Elijah had stayed over overnight at my mother-in-law's, but we then had to try and find someone to look after to Noah. So we managed to get like somebody to help kind of watch him, but we then were like, okay, well, what time can we like rush this to? Like, so I ended up going home at like 11 o'clock ish, because it was an event for Jade anyway, so I didn't want her to miss out on that. And then I also felt like I was missing out, because it was getting to like a very, like, everybody was getting like drinking, they were socialising a bit more, and I was having to
I may have enjoyed a few libations too many on that one, but yeah.
And then I had to leave. Like I would have loved for us to have ended up having I've got one of the rooms that night, and just been able to have some time where we could just have a decent night's sleep.
Yes.
And also just kind of not have to worry about what tomorrow is going to bring. But life gets in the way. You're a parent. Obviously, you have to take these things where you can. But we've definitely said that we need to make more time for ourselves, and then more time for ourselves as a couple. Like, we've got our 10-year anniversary coming up this year.
Oh, amazing.
So we've said that we need to find somebody just to kind of watch the kids, so we can just go for a dinner.
Yeah, that's like, and when that comes round, that's going to be great. I think in terms, like, when my partner, when she had our youngest, so that was her third C-section, and we found out after that 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 wee fella ravaged her body. Let's be honest. She has like scar tissue basically encasing all of her stomach, etc. So she's really struggled with that. So she has like endometriosis. I think she actually has. She's currently getting she's been put into medical menopause because it's so bad. She's just been put onto, I can't remember what they're called, but they're injections that she gets every 12 weeks, and she needs to have hormone patches. So she gets like patches that she has to change kind of twice weekly. But she basically intimacy and her, it's kind of like you said, it does kind of go out the window. She it's something that she can't do, and she really struggles with that emotionally. It's something that was it was a very big part of our relationship, and then kind of all of a sudden just kind of had to stop because it was she was in agony. But we're both very, our love language is very different. She is very kind of vocal. That's her love language. I'm a gentle giant. I'm a cuddly bear. That's who I am. So but basically we kind of we talk, we try and make time, but date nights have basically completely gone. We're trying to do more together and with the kids, but like you said, we obviously had that charity thing a few weeks ago. We got childcare, so we ended up having to get three different people to watch all three kids. So my mum watched my youngest, and my partner, her mum watched our oldest, and our stepdaughter, her gran from our dad's side watched her. So 3 different houses had all of our children in it. So I think we cashed in our babysitting privileges. Honestly, I think it's like once a year at this point. But yeah, we cashed them all in for the one night, which was great, and it was brilliant. Like, the night we had was brilliant. We both needed it. Probably the best night's sleep I've had in years. Just being able to kind of just enjoy time with my partner. Because it's funny because she was, she's the type that kind of gets up and dances when we're having a night out, and I'm more, I like to just kind of chill, sit down, chat to people, and I was kind of watching her dance and socialise, and you kind of pan back to the person that you see at home sometimes, and you go, wow, you're like, wow, she's living her best life right now, and that's so fulfilling. I don't know if you feel the same way, but
I mean, your partner was the life and soul of it. She was making sure every single person there had a ring light on for the pictures.
God, yeah, she absolutely. She's got this little ring light. It's like a clip that goes on top of your phone. So anytime anybody was taking a picture, she was like, "Use this light; it makes better." And I was like, I was like, sweetheart, I need, like, chill, man, you know. But she was so fixated on it, so I was like, I'm not going to argue with her. You know, my dad taught me the two most important words in the English dictionary are yes, dear. Don't know how you guys feel about that one, but it's kept me well so far. So, but no, I think when you look at mental health overall, I know we're coming up to the tail end, but you know, there are so many available things out there. There are groups for men's mental health. I know down where I stay, there's Mentor Scotland, who are really, really good. I've been to some of their sessions a few times. So they'll do a kind of hour, like they'll make food session, etc. And then there'll be an hour of more kind of concentrated, like chats around the table, etc. So, and you know, that's one of, I can imagine, many services out there that are available to you. It's having that kind of willpower to speak up, and that can be hard in itself, you know.
Definitely, and obviously we like to do different call outs for places we've been, but I think it would make sense to just to call out not even just one place, but I know that personally that the Carers Centre has been kind of massive in support for us. I managed to go to different counselling through them, so it's definitely something that I would recommend everyone reach out to their local Carers Centre to get not just services on mental health, but it can be different support that you can get in place. You can get carer support plans put in there just to make sure that you as a carer is getting looked after as well, and not just your child, because you're obviously in the same situation as well. And as we've said the full way through this, you need to make sure you look after yourself. So definitely what I'd recommend, and make sure that you do look up your local carer centre, and they can point you in directions, and whether they're going to set up kind of group counselling sessions like I've attended in the past, or whether they can point you in the right direction. It's definitely something to be beneficial, and I would recommend.
100%. The only other thing I can think of off the top of my head is, you know, if you are struggling, please reach out. If you want to reach out to us, by all means, we're on obviously Instagram, we've got the WhatsApp chat, etc., Facebook. Please do reach out. Failing that, if you want to, you know, certainly please look up your local helplines. It's very, very important, and it's worth your time. You know, some people think that it's not worth it, you know, but one call really could change your life. So please do reach out. Definitely
don't suffer in silence, whether it is a case of you're just wanting to join in the conversation with the rest of us, if you get to go off your chest, or if you just want to be part of a group, so you're not alone, then definitely reach out and we can get you involved.
Definitely. The first key to it is asking for that help, and wanting to get better, because otherwise you'll live with regrets, and you'll live with this torment, and it'll just fester until it makes you ill.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. And again, I know that all of our 100% main priorities will be our children the majority of the time, but again, you just can't stress enough that you're not going to be able to help them if you don't help yourself.
100%.
Yeah, it's been a fairly heavy one for us this week, but I think it's definitely something that we've spoke about honestly, and kept it going. So thank you for the two of you listening to me this week anyway.
Yeah, thank you as well. I tend to ramble a lot, so especially with this episode, it's obviously such an important part of my life, so thank you for listening, obviously. I think as a community and as people, all we can do is share our experiences and hope that it resonates with any people listening.
Definitely, it's been good to open up and have a chat with you both, and thanks everyone for listening. I think we'll wrap it up there until next week. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you want to get involved or get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram under ASN Dad Chat.